Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and well, what a thrilling 1 minute it was that was preceded by 119 minutes of, well, we'll be discussing all that and more a little bit later on in the show. Tonight, I'm once again joined by my co-host, Grapeviney, and I'll just have to check whether his heart can take another close one like this. Grapeviney, how's your ticker?
Struggling 2 weeks in a row, but I've actually got some breaking news tonight, Andy, in relation to the game last weekend against Gold Coast. Both clubs have been charged with bringing the game into disrepute and crimes against football.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty, and we'll discuss it more. We're going to be joined later on by Super Mikado, who'll no doubt have a lot to say about the game. But yeah, it's sort of for me, and as I said, we'll talk about it more later on. It did feel, it almost, even though we won, it felt like a loss to me. I know the players were stoked and you were wrapped and celebrating and got the win, but I felt a little bit empty. I don't know what that's all about. Particularly when we drew it. For me, that felt like a loss. Definitely. Happy to take the 4 points. I'll bank that and yeah. But I don't know, what were your feelings with that?
Well, we've lost another couple of players, so in one sense, it was a big loss.
Yeah, I think that sort of was part of the reason.
We'll get to that later too, I guess.
Yes, but now we're going to be joined in a moment by backman turned forward Jayden Hunt just after this short break.
It's almost, it should have been 50. Bagley running into the zone, got away with one, kick forward. Hunt's at the back and it dribbles through. It's like they've almost worked out that the season's on the line, Melbourne.
The left foot raking boot of Fritsch. Hunt, Mark Strong. Big grab.
She says a good mark.
Lockhart. Little give Petrarca to Brayshaw. Brayshaw right into that hot zone. In front, McKenna could hold it. Melcham. Kolodjasny. Hunt. Open goal. Back to 16 points.
Oliver back to Gawn. Breaks clear. Viney. Inside 50 they go. Look at the desperation again. Hunt finds a bit of room to answer. Oh my word. The first year player does answer. We're level again with 20 seconds to go.
Our guest tonight has made the successful transition from the half-back line to cement a position up forward for the D's. He's the Demons' second leading goal scorer in 2019 so far with 9 goals 6, just 1 goal behind the now injured Jake Melksham on 10 goals 5. He's sponsored by this very website and we're very proud to do that, as well as very honoured to have him on the show tonight. Welcome back to the Demonland podcast, Jayden Hunt.
Thanks guys, appreciate it. Good to be here.
Jayden, we should start with a thank you. You were one of the heroes of the win the other night, heavily involved in the last 2 passages of play, as we just heard there. Take us through that final minute. Did you know how much time was left after the Gold Coast score, and did you believe that we could still turn it around?
Yeah. The runner, Daniel Cross, got out and told us there was about 20 seconds left. So when Marty kicked that goal, so we knew, we'd have one more chance at it if we won the centre clearance. And, yeah, we were clearly trying to win. Gold Coast looked like they were actually playing for the draw with their setups. But, yeah, we would do it. We just wanted to win.
What was going through your mind in that dying seconds when you collected the ball on the 50-metre line? For a second, it appeared as if you were going to kick it long and deep, but you must have heard the call from Marty Hall and you dished off a beautiful handball, which obviously resulted in the levelling goal. So what was going through your mind in that play?
Yeah, I was just trying to... We always got told to keep calm in those pressures. There's always chances to win the game. So, yeah, I knew someone, if I just kept on looking forward and looking for an option, someone would bop up. And then, I saw Marty out wide. And, luckily enough, hit the handball well. And we all know how good a kick Marty Hall is, so I would have backed him every time. And, he nailed it as his first goal, which is pretty good.
Has it been a bit of a problem not having the runners on the field as much? Have you noticed? Have the players noticed that as being an issue? Not being able to sort of coach you guys. Has that been a problem?
It's taken a bit of an adjustment, I guess, just because obviously they can't get as many messages out. But what it does require is a lot more communication from guys coming onto the ground to deliver a lot of messages, looking at the bench for sort of signals of what to do, how long's left in the game. So, yeah, I guess a lot of onus is on the players instead of from the coaching box. So, yeah, it's taken a bit to adjust, but I think we're getting the hang of it now. And, yeah, we should get more in sync as the season goes on.
Jayden, in the final passage of play the other night, you made an important contest in the air at half forward and brought the ball to ground for James Harms to swoop. What did Goody say to you after the match? He must have been pleased with your efforts there.
Yeah, he just said he's just really happy with my will to win. I value myself as a pretty competitive guy, so when the high ball went up, I just decided I just need to crunch this pack because we got numbers on the ground, which I was able to do. I was able to get to the contest, get it to the front, and yeah, the rest is history. Harmsy unluckily shinned the ball, but we'll manage to rush it through for a point, so all's well that ends well.
That's what I wanted to know, was Harmsy having a shot for goal there?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think he's ever had a worse kick than that, so he's been copying it all week, but luckily it didn't matter in the end.
How are you enjoying life in the forward line? It must be pleasing to get among the goals.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. Just the freedom and the ability to dictate your opponent. Also, yeah, you can get your fellow forwards in play as well. So I love sort of giving them goals as well and getting up and about. So, yeah, change your role, but I like to think that I've got that defensive bone that I can also bring into the forward line and really drive that pressure that we've been putting on. So, yeah, hopefully, obviously our forward connection hasn't been up to scratch even, especially on the weekend. So hopefully we just keep on improving in that. And, yeah, one of these games is just going to click and we'll go from there.
Whose idea was it to try you in the forward line? Is that something the coaching staff came up with, or did you approach them? Yeah,
I've always thought I've had the versatility to play it, but yeah, Goody just rang me during the JLT before the second game just to say we're going to give you a shot up forward. We just think it suits you well, so give that a go. So I actually played a few years ago, my second season at the club, played as a high half forward as well. So I had done it for a few games, but not for a few years now.
Yep.
So you hadn't been training over the pre-season with the forward line? It was just sort of late, sort of at that JLT?
Yeah, no, I'd actually been training with the backs all pre-season, going pretty well. But, yeah, we had a lot of depth down the back line and a few key injuries to the forward line. So it's just a good opportunity to sort of add to my versatility. And it's good to be able to be picked in both sort of positions. So it really adds to your value as a player as well.
So where do you think your best position is? And now with Hibbert and Lewis joining a long list of backline injuries, do you think you might end up on the half-back again, if only temporarily?
I'm not too sure what the plan is. I am enjoying playing up forward. It's sort of given me this new sort of fresh life because, you know, I didn't have the greatest season last year. So at the moment, I'm enjoying the forward line. But Goody said that just keep the back line ability sort of up your sleeve because, yeah, we may require it at some point during the year. So, yeah, we'll see what decision's made, but I'm really happy to play either, really.
Jayden, you just made a reference to last year. It was a disappointing season for you after a swashbuckling 2017. You just couldn't seem to get a clear run at it. It must have been very frustrating for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Individually, last year was a real battle for me. It was a real hard one. Obviously, my form early, getting dropped a couple of times, and then a string of injuries just meant I couldn't really get going. So, yeah, I came back after my first ankle injury in pretty good form, was able to get straight back in the AFL side, and then did it again. And also an ongoing shoulder, which I had to have Silver in the off-season. So, yeah, combination of form, confidence, injuries and things, just meant I just couldn't really go at it. But just watching my teammates in that final series just made me get that real hunger back and want to be a part of it, really, want to be part of a team that's doing well. So, yeah, that's what drove me during the pre-season. And, yeah, hopefully me as an individual and then as the team as well can really build from a pretty slow start. But, yeah, we do have the confidence still that we can get to those heights and hopefully further.
Jayden, we've been following your headwear with interest. Prior to this week, I noticed a change in the colour scheme that seemed to have, it looked like you would ditch the white out of it and look like just the red and blue like Gus's helmet. But I noticed this week, I thought I saw a bit of white had returned. Do you have different headbands there or did you go just a red and blue one?
Oh, there's a few. They're all pretty similar, but a few of them are slightly involve the white or not the white. So it's just really what I'm feeling. I was wearing one for a while, but it was getting pretty dirty and pretty stinky. So I changed it up a few weeks ago. So yeah, just keep it fresh, I guess.
I must say I'm a big fan of just the red and blue one, but I understand that you'll go with what you feel like. But yeah, the red and blue one looked great.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think people were saying it suited the long sleeves, so I might have to continue to rock that too.
We're just going to ask you about the return of the long sleeve jumper. Actually, is that a style choice to go retro or one out of comfort?
No, definitely out of comfort. I actually played long sleeve as a junior, and then I tried it in Canberra a couple of years ago against GWS, and probably had the worst half I've ever played on a footy field. So I ditched it at half time, and haven't been game enough to bring it back out. But definitely when it's cold, I'll continue wearing it this season.
One final question for you, Jayden. How's the mood amongst the boys? It's difficult. Is it difficult to keep the spirits up in the playing group when we've had such a difficult start to the season? Is there any talk of finals, or are we 1 week at a time? Are we in 1 week at a time mode at the moment?
Yeah, sort of 2 weeks ago. I think we were 1-5. We just decided to sort of reset, forget what had happened, and really start a new sort of block of a season. So, yeah, we're really working up to the bye as that sort of new period. And, we're lucky enough to get 2 close wins, but we're still not playing them the way we know we can. We're trying to ignore the outside noise because we believe the fundamentals of our game is actually in good shape. It's just a bit of forward connection, a bit of skill execution, and I think it will click soon. So, yeah, we really look to reset and not look too far ahead, not look at the actual ladder, but just really look to what we can do as a team. And we have shown that in the past, and hopefully, we can show it this week and continue to build throughout the season.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us tonight on the Demonland podcast. We really appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best for the rest of the season. And hopefully after this week, you are leading the goal kicking for the D's.
Yeah, we'll see. But, thanks for having me in, and, always a pleasure.
All right, thank you very much. Well, that was Jayden Hunt, and we thank Jayden and the Melbourne Football Club for allowing Jayden to come on the Demonland podcast. We are now joined by our other co-host, Super Mikado. Good evening, how are you?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm still coming down from the thrills and spills of the last 50 seconds the other night.
Yeah, it really was. A roller coaster, especially a roller coaster of emotions. I almost did not see the end of the game. I almost turned off the TV in disgust. And had I done that, I probably would have stayed away from all social media and probably wouldn't have found out until the next day. So luckily, I kept the TV on and was pleasantly surprised. In the end.
I almost didn't see the end of it because I was watching the game sitting on a laptop on a desk, and when that Gold Coast goal went through, I yelled a popular Anglo-Saxon four-letter word starting with F and did the kick version of an uppercut on the desk, And let me say, that laptop bobbed around like a cork in the ocean. So I'm
Oh, my
very
word.
surprised it kept broadcasting through that, but very pleased that it kept broadcasting through that in the end.
Yeah, I imagine there would have been some people that would have turned off the TV. I read someone on Twitter saying they were at the game and some people got up and left at that stage, but no doubt I'm sure they would have still been in the ground when we had ultimately won. But had they left the actual viewing area, they might have thought the cheers weren't for a goal that we'd kicked. So, yeah.
I learnt my lesson last year in that St Kilda game, which I had to watch at home, and I did the equivalent of storming out when they kicked a goal to go 3 and a bit up, and then went into the other room, picked up my phone and went, "What do you mean we only lost by 2 points?" So I've learnt my lesson from that to just never give up till the end.
It was remarkable. I've never seen anything like that from other games. I think there was a game, Richmond Freo, which was won right down to all seemed lost. But have we been involved, Supercarter? You'd probably know this. I saw you wrote something that we'd never won a game after the siren.
Yes, we've had other teams lose the game or fail to beat us after the siren. So technically we have won games later.
Yep.
But we never, in my estimation, have ever actually won a game after the siren. So the latest I could remember other than this was the Andrew Leoncelli in Adelaide.
Yes.
Round 2, 2001, which I think there was 4 seconds left.
Yep. So that.
And then you had the Tom McDonald in Perth, which was about 20 seconds left. The Jeff White against Footscray gets brought up a bit, but what people forget about that is there was actually enough time in that for Aaron Davey to storm inside 50 and hit the post.
Okay, yes, that's right.
As after Jeff White's goal, much to the disappointment of a much younger me who had to listen to it on the radio that night, of all things, and I think I almost had a nervous breakdown when he hit the post. So that was obviously a lot later. There was Jack Trengove smacking through a point against Port Adelaide in 2010. That was a late one. And I remember a Russell Robertson smacking through a point against Hawthorn in 99, a game that I remember for 2 other things. One was Hawthorn fans throwing punches at each other right in front of me, and 2, Scott Chisholm doing one of the great run-down tackles on a player in the goal square and then being pinged for a push in the back. An incident that caused an 18-year-old me to pretty much behave like I did when Gold Coast kicked that goal the other night. But no, from my records, we have never won a game off our own boot. Before today, later than 4 seconds to go in the game, and it'll be pretty hard to beat this as the record.
It was... I keep thinking every time I watch the replay of this, I keep expecting to lose it because it's so preposterous what ended up happening. Having to kick 2 scores with 54 seconds to go, it's almost unheard of. I look at the last play, and it was good that we got confirmation from Jayden Hunt that Harmsy was actually having a shot for goal. He wasn't passing it to T-Mac because I actually wasn't sure what he was doing. But when you do look at the replay, you can see he did shank the kick a little bit. Do you think Tom McDonald should have gone for the mark, or do you think he should have had the presence of mind to punch it through?
There was a bit of, I thought the criticism of Tom was pretty harsh for dropping the mark because Harm's kick was an absolute floater, and it was all over the shop. So I think it was a lot more difficult than some people made out. So, yeah. Yep.
And I think, did he have to change direction halfway? Because I'd have to watch it again for the 53rd time. I'd have to watch it again just for that moment. But if he didn't change direction, why was he running away from the goal anyway?
He might have been giving a lead.
That says to me he must have been going in and then backed back when he saw that the kick was terrible. Because otherwise, the obvious thing to do would be track it into the square and then either mark it or smack it through. I'm just pleased for once in that game, an aimless bomb into the forward line wasn't just easily mopped up by a Gold Coast defender.
Well, let's talk about let's talk about the other 119 minutes because we were terrible. I don't know what other word there is. Now, it seemed to have, I don't know if it's an excuse or the reason, it seemed to be very dewy out there. Does that explain a lot of the fumbles that we had? I didn't notice them fumbling as much as we did, fumbling, dropping marks, grapevine.
Well, some of our Queensland correspondents said it was actually a perfect winter's night for football, and while it might have been a little bit dewy out there, it probably was less so than what it normally would have been. So I don't think that's any excuse, and I think we've seen that kind of fumbling basically all year. Ground balls just not coming in cleanly, hand passes not hitting their mark, and players still running under the football. And we just look really sloppy still somehow, 2 months into the season.
Yeah, I would concur with that. At the same time, I thought we actually, in everything other than executing skills and kicking goals, I thought we were by far the better team. But all the fumbles and the many wasted inside 50s just left the door open for Gold Coast, which they almost took. Half their team took it and half their team didn't, and that's why we went the other way and got 2 scores. But I think, again, there were signs there, but there were not signs there that say to me we're going to beat good teams anytime in the next few weeks, especially this week. And the run we've got is against teams who are not going to give us the same leeway that Gold Coast gave us. So I don't think it was a good trial for the future, but I'm extremely happy to stuff the 4 points up my jumper and leg it out the door, and just remember the ending.
Yeah, I'll never not bank 4 points. That's for sure. No matter how ugly a win is, I'll always take those 4 points. Steal it or don't steal it, we take it. We killed the disposals, clearances, inside 50s, contested possessions. We're just not scoring. It's not even the scoring. We're not. It's coming out of our forward line too easily. This has been all year. This is not something new. Got nothing for you in terms of how you fix that. It was happening a little bit last year as well, but we just were able to score.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. It was happening a lot last year as well. And, we might have been the highest scoring team in the competition, but I think, which is good, I'm never going to turn that back. But at the expense of it being the lowest scoring season in God knows how long, be the efficiency of inside 50s and see the golden 6 or 7 weeks, about 12 months to the day, where we were just smashing teams left, right and centre. I think it was a misleading highest score in the competition. And I think some of the issues we're having now, you could see from a mile away from last year. I liked to think that they weren't going to happen, but now that they have, I look back to last year and say, I could see this coming, but I couldn't really see it coming.
I guess we've got to take into account the massive injury toll, taking 9, 10, 11, possibly more of your best 22 out of the team is definitely going to have an effect. The fact that the rest of the best 22 that are actually in the team, a lot of them are underperforming, not playing to the 2018 standards. That's definitely there. And the fact that we've had players, we've talked about it all year on the podcast, the late start, the injury late, the surgery late starts, it's all together has taken a toll. And these are 1 week at a time thing, because I'm definitely not talking the F word, even though we're a game and percentage just out of the 8.
That percentage, though, is worth about 4 games, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, it's back to 2013, 14 levels.
In my head, before the game, I was thinking, well, this is a game where we can bank some percentage, and I was happy in the end just to bank the 4 points. That percentage is a worry, but we can't dare talk finals now because,
because of the run we've got as well. Like if we can do some damage in the next few weeks, and like I said, I certainly don't think it's going to start this week. But then in some order, we've got GWS at the MCG, who will be coming with everybody pointing and laughing at their record at the MCG. We've got Adelaide, could go either way. We've got Collingwood, which you wouldn't think we'd win, but by that time, we might have got a few players back and start to get a bit of rhythm going. Unless we can do some damage in that block. For instance, if we lose all four, all hope is lost. And I think even if we don't at least go 2-2 and get ourselves to some easier games, I don't think there's any hope. But to me, anything that happens this year is a bonus now. I'm quite prepared to miss the finals and not burn down the Demon shop on Brunton Avenue and chase Simon Goodwin down the Eastern Freeway. It has been a season that's been cruel by injuries. We've done some dopey things as well. But I think that the building blocks are definitely there for next year. And I think that it's, unfortunately, sometimes you've got to, a la Richmond 2016, just have that 1 year of distress before you bounce back. And I think we will bounce back.
Well, let's talk before we go into the disappointment mode. There were some players who did stand out, and I don't think we've talked about this guy much on the podcast this year, but he's just gone from strength to strength. Christian Salem this year, we know how silky he is with his skills, but he's had a fantastic year this year. I'd say he'd be very high up there in the Bluey count at the moment.
He'd be close to winning it, probably.
Well, he's not winning it on. He's coming second, Demonland Player of the Year in yours, Super Mikado. How's he?
I've got him equal top with Max now.
Yeah.
As of this week, with Oliver one behind, and then Melksham. Obviously, he's going to drop a few weeks, and then Harms is the only other one that's in double figures. So yeah, I've got Salem and Gawn level at the top of the table.
Yeah, I think we've got. But just a sec, Grapevine. I think we've got Clary on top, then equal Max and Salem are equal second, followed by Harms and a few of the guys you mentioned. Yes, Grapevine.
Yeah, I mean, Salem is just, he's head and shoulders above anyone else when it comes to using the ball, isn't he? And he sticks out like a sore thumb at the moment, in particular.
Clary had a lot of the ball. I think there was...
His disposal is not as damaging as last year, though, is it?
Definitely not.
He seems to be rushed for no good reason. He's got plenty of time, but not always making the best decisions and not always executing, and certainly not up to the level of last year.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. But at the same time, at least he compensated in this case with a animal off the ball defensive performance, which if you're not going to get the 6 cents handballs over the top and all that kind of stuff, at least you're getting something on the other side. Whereas you get other players who just go down and they don't compensate. So I still thought he was probably best on ground, but it was a pretty competitive field for those first few spots in the best on grounds.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. He was still excellent, wasn't he?
He racked up his over his 1,000th contested possession. He joins Patrick Cripps on 68 games, the fewest career games to rack up that amount of contested possessions. The next is Josh Kennedy on 79, and then Tom Limberatore 82, Nat Fyfe 83 games, and Tom Mitchell rounds it out the top five with 87 games. So it's a pretty good stat. We've got a good one here.
Yes, we did well. I think that might be the one time in this century that we've made a surprise draft choice that's actually come off rather than come back to bite us 2 years later when the person's barely played a game.
I thought Sam Frost, and let's excise the last 2 minutes of the game because he made a crucial error at half forward, which almost cost us the game. But I thought outside of that, I thought Sam Frost continued what's been a pretty good start to the year.
He's been our best backman this year by far. I'd have to say. Would you agree, Super Mikado?
It's not a very competitive field, but I think since the Sydney game, He has been good. Look, he does weird things because he plays like, an out-of-control car on a wet road. And at times, that actually works perfectly, e.g. the end of the Hawthorn game when he did that turn and collected the ball. At times, maybe not, but I would agree. It's obviously our backline has been decimated this year, but I think he stood up reasonably well and bounced back from that 3 or 4 game nightmare stretch from the prelim to that Essendon debacle.
I'll just talk ruckman at the minute. Do you think we should have played Bruce in this game? And I'll give you an example why. They got a pretty good ruckman who matched it with backs quite well in terms of hit-outs, but they got another really tall forward who when their ruckman was resting, is his name Peter Wright, 2-metre Peter as they call him. He went into the ruck against an undersized Kilty, and I just thought we probably should have gone in knowing they've got two big ruckmen, perhaps gone in with 2 big ruckmen ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, my views on Bruce. So if they thought he was fit, I think they definitely should have played him. But maybe there was still a concern over the shoulder.
Great, Viney?
Yeah, no, I think the same. I'm inclined to think that there must have been some concern over him. Otherwise, I think he would have played and expect him to play this week.
Well, I looked at I didn't watch the twos. We'll talk about it later if either of you did. But I saw he got a bunch of hit outs and kicked 2 goals. So, I mean, for me, it's that ability to kick goals as well, where we've struggled to kick goals. His kick goals in every game he's played for the ones, he's kicking them in the twos. Maybe there was a question mark on his shoulder or his fitness. Hopefully he comes in this week. Jonesy played all right.
Had a great last quarter.
Yep. Viney too, couple of really important clearances in the end. One of them, Maxi cleared it, but he was the one that picked it up off the deck and gave it to Maxi.
Yeah, I thought he struggled. You're right, he was there at the end, but I thought he struggled for most of the night, and it hasn't been a great season for Jack so far. Yeah, with injuries and less than stellar form.
Well, we're definitely going to miss Hibberd and absolutely Melksham. I thought Melksham was fantastic in the first half. He was getting everything. He probably just couldn't hit the scoreboard as much, but he was...
I think he had 14 touches at quarter time.
Yep.
Yeah, they played an unreal first quarter.
Kicked a goal, handballed off to Harmsy for that 1-2, where Harmsy kicked a goal. We're really going to miss him.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's
a key player in the half forward.
So.
Hibberd as well had started to get some good form. So, yeah, what can you do? We're walking wounded at the moment, and it's a sad event. Someone I think said on one of Demonland's social media, "What happens if you can't field 22 players?" But we're obviously not quite at that then yet. But it begs the question. I think did we have 6 players in the twos this week?
Yep. So, yeah, definitely stretched at the moment.
Yeah.
I think Essendon went close one year. I think they were down probably about 10, maybe longer than that, years ago. But by the last round, they had about 23 players left to pick from. I guess now with your mid-season drafts and all that, as long as you didn't have a massive crisis at the end of the year, you'd probably be able to top it up with a couple in the middle of the year. And then maybe if they've got those players sort of in a pool anyway, if it got down to the worst possible scenario, they might let you just go and pluck one of those and park them on the bench.
T-Mac sort of turned the corner a little bit. It was able to kick 3 goals, which was pleasing. Dropped a lot of marks. So I'm wondering if the Dewey ball had anything to do with it, or he's just lost a bit of touch at the moment in terms of
people
marking.
are speculating whether he's carrying some sort of injury, that he doesn't look as agile and as nimble as he did last year. So, it was a mixed bag for T-Mac the other night. He did look to get a little bit of touchback, but there was still some glaring drop marks, basically, that he would have absolutely gobbled last year. So it's a bit of a slow road back to form, I guess. And George on the outer asked in the...
Yeah, I was going to bring this up.
In the chat room about Brayshaw, and I think most would agree, including Angus, that he struggled the other night, probably had one of his worst games for the club. George asking, is he carrying an injury? Or is he just did he just have a bad night?
I don't know if he's carrying an injury, but a few times he barely made an effort as players streamed past him. He just sort of put an arm out, and they didn't even have to brush him aside because they just ran.
It was really, as you say, just a limp-armed effort.
And that's not...
Is he annoyed that he got pushed out to a wing so that Jones can play in the middle?
Look, you'd hope not. You'd hope that you would.
Someone wouldn't rule anything out.
I think he's probably more professional to do that.
I hope so.
Yeah, I wouldn't. If it turns out that that's the case, that's not good. But I doubt it. But yeah, put it down to an off night, because that's not the Brayshaw that we know and love and have seen.
No.
Thoughts on that, Super Mercado?
Yeah, look, I think he's been off a lot of this season, actually. I think his disposal, which I don't expect the disposal to be awesome every time, because that's not the kind of player he is. But I think it's been a bit more hit and hope than it was last year. And I definitely concur on that couple of those tackling efforts that just didn't seem fully committed. Now, you don't want to cause a controversy, but to me, just as the outside viewer, it just looked like he could have gone harder in a couple of those tackles. So I hope that once we start to get some players back, if he needs the break, give him the break. But unfortunately for now, given the crisis we have in our depth, they're just going to have to get him going another way. They're going to have to use all their man management skills to fire him up.
Really small forwards at the moment. We're really struggling. I think Garlett's struggling. I really can't see him holding his place this week. But then, who else is to come in? I
don't think Bedford did anything by the Casey reports, and I'm not even sure if Chandler even played, let alone did anything. So I don't think any new players. I guess there's Sparrow. Is one option, but not really, it's not really like for like.
I'd persist with Jeffy. He was in the right places a few times the other night, had a horrible dose of the fumbles, but I'd persist with him because there's just no one to replace him.
I agree. Just play him, and if he's really bad the next couple of weeks, there's just got to be a line in the sand where they just say, you're out, and they potentially could go and get a small forward in this mid-season draft, which I think is 2 rounds away, possibly. And they could go and find a ready-made small forward and just throw them straight into the side.
Do you reckon anyone you get in this fire sale is going to be the guy to turn our season around? I just can't see it happening.
There's a lot of turning to be done, so I would say certainly not. But I guess from my perspective, it's getting the player in with a free hit of being able to chuck them at the end of the year. So whether you bring in an experienced player, and I know they said Corey Gregson, who used to play for Geelong, apparently, is one of them, and he's a forward. And I'm told by my Geelong supporting sources that would be lucky to get 5 games out of him before he gets injured again.
Well, that's perfect for us.
To which I said, well, A, he'd fit in nicely, and B, that's perfect timing, because give us 5 games, gets to the end of the year, gets injured, and we chuck him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a few. It's a bit more. To me, I wouldn't go out and pick, for instance, a key defender, because I think that's someone who needs time to fit into the system of a team.
Yeah.
But if you go out, and I don't know the story of everyone who's shortlisted in this draft, but if you go out and get like some Austin Wanamiri style Hail Mary player who just plays on instinct and can't have the joy of football coached out of them within 6 or 7 weeks, that might be the kind of person you just throw in there and just let them run riot and just see what happens. And then if it doesn't work at the end of the year, thank you for your service, back to your old club.
What's the story with this pre-season draft? You mentioned that you have a free hit at them, that you don't have to keep them. Is that?
Yep, correct. You're basically only signing them to the end of the year. And then they get some kind of golden handshake if they get delisted at the end of the year, but there's no obligation to keep them.
Do you get first right of refusal to retain their services?
I'm not sure. I would think so. It would make sense that you would, because it'd be ironic if you go and suddenly pluck the next big thing, John Coleman, out of the Manangatang twos or something, and then Carlton go and pick him in front of you in the draft. So you would think so, but potentially, I guess you could just re-sign them.
Yeah.
If they're your player, you might just be able to say, "Bang, here's your 10-year contract."
Yeah.
If you think they're good enough.
Our friend of the show, Declan Keelty, didn't have a stellar second up match. Now it all depends, I guess, with who's coming in. We've got Tim Smith, kicked 4 goals. Prusy, I can't see Deck keeping his spot unless with Hibberd going out, maybe Lewis, they might chuck him down back. Is a possibility.
Well, there's not a lot else in the tank. You've got Petty in the defensive line. I think it was Petty and Jordan were the only AFL listed players who were in the Casey backline last week. So there is definitely not a lot there.
And Goodwin did make reference to Petty in his presser today, saying that he and Oscar Baker had been in good touch and would get a run at some stage. So whether that's this week or a bit further down the track, we'll see.
Yeah, I'd like to see Oscar Baker get a go. I wouldn't mind. I don't think Stretch has set the world on fire in his return this year. I know he played some good games before he got injured last year, but he certainly hasn't been back to that form in that Freo game where he got injured.
I'm going to go
really
into that for him. I think he's actually been very good the last few weeks. Like, not a world beater, but then again, no one really has been. I think he's definitely earned his spot at the moment. But at the same time, I would also like to see Baker get a run, potentially in a few weeks when we can start to sort of do some wacky things, and it's not going to affect the 0.001% chance of making the finals.
I got to say, I got to disagree on Stretch. I thought he really struggled the other night, and he probably will keep his spot just given the state of things with injuries. But I just can't see a long-term future for him. I don't know what he really brings to the team, unfortunately.
Throughout the game, I couldn't help thinking that if we were playing Geelong in Geelong, we would have got absolutely pantsed, and probably not the only one to have thought of that. No offence to Gold Coast, but yeah, I think
they were an ordinary team, and we were 1 second less ordinary. But I really do think we played the better game, but. That doesn't mean squat.
Got to be able to score.
If you don't convert it,
and
at the right time, and we got in there by 1.5 seconds. But that is, if they play like that in Perth, it'll be like the prelim on fast forward. They will absolutely rip us to shreds. So I really hope. I'm kind of already sus about this whole, we're never going to review the prelim, we're moving on.
He said it again today.
He said it all pre-season.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. He's the coach, so I'm not going to second guess him. But to me, there might be things in that performance, like how they double team Max and how they just had us on the run left, right and centre. There's probably something to be learnt from that game, especially in the context of going in without Melksham, Hibberd, potentially Lewis, and, going in with a skeleton staff to Perth against West Coast, who are kind of just going and will probably be keen to make a statement. I'm very concerned about this week's game.
We have a habit of playing teams back into form.
Absolutely. And they've got a long way to go to get back in premiership form.
Yes, they do. Anything else from this game that you guys want to bring up? Anyone I've missed out? Good, bad, ugly?
I thought Gawn was absolutely mighty in the last minute. He was good the rest of the game, but he and Viney did both of those scores. They played a massive role in them. So I guess there's the benefit you see, as if you didn't already know, to having such a good ruckman. And also having a ruckman that teammates can be confident in giving him the ball in traffic. A lot of ruckmen you wouldn't think about giving the ball to in traffic.
No, they'd be the ones.
Those scores never happen.
They'd be the ones quickly palming it off.
It was an interesting passage of play, that one, because over on the other side, the way which Viney was running, Salem was on his own, calling for the ball, running through across the wing. And it's interesting that Viney, I don't know, maybe he couldn't see Salem and thus gave the ball off to Max. But, yeah, Salem was running past and calling for it and on his own. So, it could have been interesting.
And how outrageous of any player, possibly the only player in the field who I would have thought a less likely chance to kick that goal would have been Oscar McDonald, because he's now up to about 70 games in his career without kicking a goal. How good is it that it adds to it that it was a backman that kicked that goal?
Yeah.
And such a beautiful hit as well.
Well,
very sweet strike.
Look, I don't know much about Marty, but they said that everyone has said that he's got a beautiful kick for goal. And if I would think, well, if that's the case, and if we weren't so desperate for backman at the moment, I'd think maybe switch him up forward. But
he said he hasn't kicked a goal in 2 years.
Yeah, then I heard
obviously playing deep in defence, like you wouldn't have the opportunities to. But that was the kind of hit. Like I would have said Salem. Yeah, he's done that before. He's done that plenty of times before. Hibbard's done it. Not that he would have done it in this situation, but Hibbard's done it a couple of times. But yeah, for Hoare to get out the side, and I don't know if you guys saw the behind the goals vision they had on the couch. And can I also say how good it is when they put these shows on streaming, so you can just skip right to the bit where they talk about Melbourne and not watch the rest of the hour. They showed the behind the goals where his opponent didn't chase him, and that's what allowed Hoare to get right out the back and just sidle up beside Hunt and take a beautiful handball in the circumstances and kick the goal.
I thought he was actually really good on the night. I saw quite a bit of criticism.
Criticism
of him separately in the post-match thread, but I actually thought he was probably in the best half dozen on the night.
I was a bit critical in the game day thread. I thought his disposal was pretty average. There's been, prior to this week, there's been a lot of people who haven't been so thrilled with his disposal. I haven't been one of them. I've actually thought he's been pretty good. But yeah, he fluffed it a few times, but he kicked the levelling goal, so I've got to thank him for that.
Yeah, Super Mikado said it was a sweet, sweet strike.
And it's one of those ones where you haven't got much time to think about it, but as you see the person and you see the ball, you're like thinking, he's not going to kick this. There's no way he's going to kick this. And then whack, through it went. And yes, it was a moment of relief, but at the same time, given that a draw would probably have been about as bad as a loss for our season, I was still sort of grumpy until the ball went forward and Jayden Hunt smashed the pack, as he talked about in the interview earlier. Which was really important. Until that's when I started getting excited again at the prospect of actually winning, because I think a draw would have been considered almost to be as bad as a loss in the circumstances.
Oh, 100%. When they'd initially levelled it, I thought that's a loss. I wouldn't have been happy with the draw. When they got in front, I was livid. Then when we levelled it up, I was just as livid. That all right, we're going to get away with a draw, but it doesn't really help us in terms of making the finals or anything like that. So
exactly. And look, I don't think we're going to make the finals, but I still don't like looking like buffoons, which is what we would have after not only failing to beat Gold Coast, who just like last year shot all their shot at the start of the year, and now they're sort of wobbling around, much better than last year, but still they're not going to make the finals. And to lose to a goal like that, and also in a game where we should have kicked, if once we learn to play forward of centre, we'll win that game. It'll be like last year. We were 95 points worse than our last start against Gold Coast. And pretty much the big difference was that we had no bloody idea what we were doing when we went inside 50 this time.
Yeah, I kept expecting we're just going to run away with it. We're going to run away with it, and it just never happened.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, even at the start of the third quarter, it was like, all right, we all know what happened last week. Let's have some of that again. Nah, nothing. So very disappointing in a way. And I think they'd had the ball gone backwards off Tom's hand and rolled out of bounds or something, we'd be having a lot different, tone of conversation here tonight.
Oh, it'd be pulling.
Four points covers everything. It's the big rug to sweep everything under.
It certainly is. All right. Jonesy played his 272nd game, equaling the late great Robbie Flowers' game of the old games record. Great achievement for a guy that's for a long time held the team up on his shoulders.
Interesting comparison, which Little Goffey put in one of the threads earlier in the week. Robbie Flower, 272 games for 88 wins, no draws, and 184 losses. Jones, 272 for 86 wins, 3 draws, and 183 losses. So 2 fewer wins for Jonesy than Robbie. So shows
and both barely any finals.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably 4-3. What it would be 4-3.
4 for Jones and 3 for Robbie.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's sad when you can actually say that just straight out. How many finals a bloke's played? That's never a good sign. I did look it up today to see the comparison to Neats, and Neats played 13 finals. So effectively, Neats got a free 10 games on top of Jones. But I can't see him getting to the Neats.
What was Neats?
The Neats number 312 or something, was it?
3-6.
3-6, yeah.
So how many games? That means he's got to play 2 years and all games.
4 years. So
yeah.
I can't see it happening. But he will certainly he'll certainly take his spot in the top 2 or top 3 very comfortably.
No, he just need to play on next year.
So what we've got?
Assuming he plays
10
the
games.
Rest of,
what have we got for the rest of this year? 10 games or so.
No,
12. 13. Yep.
Another 13 games this year, so it'll be 285. 15-6, need to play virtually a full season. But just to put that in context, since his debut, he's missed a total of 11 games, so very durable. Averaging at 21 a season without finals.
So you think he'll get another year next year? I can't see them not giving him a year.
I think he will get one more year, unless he really sort of fell off the end of a cliff. I think he's good to go for one more year, and some of it might be played in the 2s for all we know.
Yeah, probably that year where you sign on and they say you know where this could end, which I guess where's Joe Roughhead's at the moment, and if the player accepts it, then great. And if they don't, I would hate to think so, but there might always be someone else who wants a player like that for a season. I would very much hope that it didn't get to that, and I think Jonesy wouldn't let that happen. He would understand the politics of going on another year.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on from that game. Let's put it behind us. Let's never review it ever again. Injuries. Can you believe our injury list? And can we? This rotten luck that we've had. 3 injuries from this game. I saw one report today saying Jordan Lewis is a chance to play. He injured not only did he injure his ankle and went off, but he came back on and then injured it again, or at least limped off in the last 2 minutes. If you listen to the call for the last 2 minutes of the game, they mentioned that he's limped off quite badly again. So I'm not sure how he then comes up again unless they just jab that ankle. But
the problem is, again, how do you replace him when the only backman we've got in the twos are Jordan and Petty, and then your other options are Kilty, Tom McDonald, Jayden Hunt. None of those options really do it for me going to Perth. But gee, I hope they don't take him if he's not right. I'd rather try one of the less exciting options than send a guy over half fit into a game like that.
Well, if he's going to jog off the ground injured, then at some point, I don't want to take that risk. It was my understanding that Charlie Spargo went with the team as an emergency. Didn't Charlie Spargo and Nibbler go over, or was that not the case? I thought players. For some reason, I thought 2 players went over, or was Charlie Spargo?
Both of them did.
But then Charlie Spargo's now got a foot injury.
Maybe he kicked a desk as well.
Yeah,
I had a foot injury on bloody Saturday night. I've still got one now.
Grapevine, do you know anything about that? I obviously Charlie didn't play in the twos. And
no, all I saw was that the 2 of them had missed the Casey game.
So I saw Nibbler.
The presumption was that both were going over, but maybe they didn't.
So it appears now that Charlie's got a foot injury
because of an injury. Yep.
So that's why he didn't go. I did see Nibbler on the boundary line a couple of times near the race, particularly when Jordan Lewis went down the race limping down, or Melksham, one of them. So I saw him there, but I think people assume that Spargo had gone as well, but that doesn't appear to be the case now, unless he injured himself on the plane. So he's injured too. Big news is, and we don't know, this is all unconfirmed, this is going by a poster on Demonland, who reckons he heard from the family that Sam has a hip injury, that soreness, reason he didn't play last week, and may require surgery. Thoughts on that? I guess none of it. We don't know that. Nothing's been confirmed by the club.
Well, it wouldn't be a surprise.
He's listed as a test, so I don't know.
Which means
hard to put too much store into it at this stage.
Yeah, but that's worrying.
There is good news, though.
What's that?
And that is that Jake Lever is expected to at least play some of this week's game with Casey.
Yes, Goodwin did mention that in in his presser today. So fantastic news. How long?
Which is, I think, a little bit earlier than what what that secondary opinion had been, which that it was going to be a little bit later than expected. But now it seems he is coming back around when we'd initially hoped.
Well, it's about time we got a injury update in our favour, because everyone else is sliding backwards at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Joel Smith, we've all heard about that, and May, I think even Jeddah went from 8 to 10 to 8 to 10 to 10 to 12 within about 3 weeks. So it's nice to get someone come back before we expected them to.
Well, I see injuries at other teams, and players are always coming back earlier than expected. I saw a report the other day that Alex Rance is absolutely flying at the moment.
Well, the only time we get players back earlier than expected is when it's Jack Viney and his foot falls apart again.
What did you think about them bringing him in this week? Do you think that was... particularly because it seemed that the decision was left up to him.
I guess it was a calculated risk that paid off, and I can't believe no Gold Coast player lined his shoulder up for a shot.
Mitch Hannon appears to be 1 to 2 weeks away. Really like to get him back in. We're screaming out for that type of player in the team, so hopefully he can make it back, at least going either before the bye or going into it. Jay Kennedy Harris as well. He's only 2 weeks away, so maybe he's the small forward that we need. The rest of them, KK and Vandenberg are still listed as TBC. They're not as the indefinite, but doesn't look like there's any movement at the station there.
I've given up on Vanders, I've got to say.
Yeah, it seems like we've got a few players like that are just perpetually injured. We talked about it last week. Maynard's one of them. Tim Smith, who played last week, but it always seems to be on the injury list.
Have we worked out where Kolajasny got this concussion yet? Like, was it in a twos game or training, or did he go to the supermarket and something dropped on his head while he was reaching at the shelves? Like, just came out of absolutely nowhere.
Christian
that he's gone
bag.
From seniors to being dropped to next thing you know he's out with an indefinite concussion, which is usually code for that we've got some trouble here. The person's potentially got actual really having real trouble with that concussion. So you'd hate to think that he's going to almost be forced out of the game by a concussion injury.
Well, I thought wasn't it diagnosed as some neck related injury? Not
His
this time, but the last
his problems were.
time before.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. But,
So
knowing us, we probably haven't opened that part of the medical file, and they're misdiagnosing him with the wrong thing.
Possibly. Oh, look, I don't know. But the good news with the Hibbert injury, initially I think it was expected that it would be worse, but they reckon he could be back within 2 weeks, despite having surgery. But 2 weeks turns to 2 to 4.
Hogan had a collarbone that he wasn't out too much longer than that. Last year.
Was that collarbone?
Was that the year before?
No, was that he did it against North in Hobart or Launceston?
I might be a year behind. I might be rolling my seasons into each other.
Remember, we played North late in the year. That was probably the game that ended up costing us finals.
Yeah, and we all thought we were a big chance because North were rubbish, and down it went. Yeah, you're probably right. It was actually 2017.
Yeah, I think it was that game. All right, so that is injury list. Casey, did either of you get to see the Casey game? It was streaming, I believe, before our game. I didn't get to see it. All I do know from that, and there aren't many Melbourne players involved, but Tim Smith, I guess the ones we need to look at, Tim Smith, 4 goals, possibly he comes in. Bruce, I think we definitely need to bring in 2 goals, and I'm not sure how many hit-outs he had, but I remember seeing something at halftime. He'd had a bunch of them. So,
well, it was in a good sign for Casey, which, given that how few there were of our players, I don't know how good sign it is for us. Essendon was actually undefeated to that point, so it was definitely an upset victory. But it sounds like Bruce definitely dominated in the ruck. So I think there should be no doubt that he comes back in this week and adds that extra contest in the forward line, because I think that's what we need a lot. We just need a contest rather than just the ball being chopped off.
Yeah. Bruce had 40 hit-outs, 15 disposals, 2 goals, 6 marks.
I thought that I read in the thread, though, that maybe was it Essendon VFL that we
they're
played?
lacking.
They
we know
didn't
that.
really have a tall to go against him.
I know. This isn't like Max Gawn's 80 hit-outs against Bendigo when it turned out he was playing against a guy who was about 5 foot.
And they've obviously had a good season being on top of the ladder. I think they've played I think they've had a good draw to date. So, not sure how much to read into the win on the weekend.
I'm going to bank any win that we get this year. Casey, Casey VFLW is a good weekend. Any weekend where Essendon loses 3 matches is a good weekend. I think they're probably the 2 players out of Casey that we're looking at, unless they can pull out some Bruckman. Oscar Baker. It doesn't really. Whoever did this, I think it was Casey from Casey, doesn't have all of his stats available there, but he did kick 2 goals. All right, Casey. So changes. We got Melksham out definitely, Hibbert out definitely. We don't know about Lewis. anyone else get dropped? I don't know if we can drop anyone.
Kilty for Bruce, I would say, would be the only omission, just because there's no obvious replacement for Garlett.
Then who comes out? We got Hibberd and we got Melksham coming out. So who comes in for them? If you're going to drop Kilty.
Nibblers are likely in for Melksham.
Yep.
If you consider Melksham as a half forward rather than the midfield role that he's played quite a bit of this year. Stretch probably keeps his spot only on account of that. You need one more to come in to replace Hibberd.
Well, it just depends if if Lewis is out as well, then we've got two defensive roles that we need to fill. So I'd like to see Petty get another go, especially if Lever's going to be coming back in the next few weeks. So it's probably a good time to test him out and see whether he's going to be worth persisting with this year. I think he's one of those players who there's no suggestion that they're going to chop him at the end of the year. But whether he's going to get a few games this year or he's really going to have to work his way into it in his third season.
I guess last couple of things I've got on the list to talk about don't really relate to the Ds per se. The Gary Ablett incident this week, your thoughts on it, Super Mikado?
It did lack force, but I don't know, personally, it's like when the Stephen May one in the preseason. Like, personally, I have no issue with that, but I'm surprised in this case, like the May one, that the league didn't have an issue with how it looked, just for the visual for the game. But I guess this weekend was just such a complete schmozzle for the AFL that they could just do anything, and no one was gonna take them seriously. So. Yeah, I don't know if Gary's trying to get a week off or something. Potentially, he should just chuck a fake hammy injury or something if he just wants to take a week off. But yeah, you don't know where the AFL is going to go these days. It's just off its face.
Well, considering the last week getting off, he didn't get off initially, and then got off on the it wasn't an appeal. He took it to the tribunal. Do they look at last week's form when they're adjudicating on this?
Who knows what they're doing?
Exactly. It's not like a court case where you would say you have to judge it on its merits and then potentially use the past form in the sentencing. This is just one bloke in an office, with a chart, coming up with an outcome.
And then there was that poor kid from North Melbourne who seemed to give a nice hip and shoulder and gets a week for it. And I think it was I don't really usually agree with things that Campbell Brown says. He said the difference between that incident and the Fife and the Ablett incident is that the North Melbourne kid doesn't have a Brownlow medal.
Yeah.
Yeah, all it lacked was Ablett being in contention for the Brownlow this year, so we could have people say things like, "Oh, you wouldn't take a Brownlow off him for that," or it's all happening in a prelim, so people would say, "Oh, you wouldn't stop him playing in a grand final for that."
Yeah.
Like it makes a difference.
Yeah, well, it does. Depends on who they are. Sometimes
that's the trifecta. If you can get finals, grand final implications, Brownlow implications, and a big name player at once, you could pretty much do anything. You could go someone with a chainsaw on the field and you'd get away with it.
Yeah. The Dane Rampy incident, climbing the post, did that warrant a free kick?
Technically, yes.
Would you be ropeable if that happened against us and wasn't given a free kick if we were in Essendon's situation?
I think players just want to see consistency, and there's some confusion now post-match as to whether it should have been or should not have been. But, again, we saw we were penalised at the weekend with one of those 50s for running in the protected space. And you watch other games and the umpires just pay that only occasionally.
Yeah, I see it all the
And
time.
sometimes they adjudicate no, and other times it's yes, we will pay it. So it's the consistency is what fans and players want to see.
Super Mikado, would you have been ropeable if that happened to us? Was it fair? Not a free
I could almost accept the umpire just fritzing out in the spur of the moment and not remembering, an obscure rule in the rule book. But it's the way they come out and say that it was the right decision.
Yeah,
but it was like, technically it should have been a free, but the feel of the game. And then you get all these, ask James Harms last week where he failed to run, in the right direction geographically past a bloke and he cops a 50 in a goal.
Twice.
I think it would have been a much cleaner if the AFL had just had the balls to come out and say that was a stuff up. There should have been a 50. We understand that it's such an obscure rule that the umpire stuffed it up. We're going to send a reminder out to all the umpires. Now, you won't be surprised to find out it was the same umpire who missed the most obvious 50 in the world last week. So I don't know if he's still traumatised about us delisting him 15 years ago.
I don't remember him.
He's had a bad run.
I don't remember him. I don't remember the name.
He played one Wizard Cup game.
Okay.
And he's there. I think he was on the rookie list for one season. So I don't know if he needs counselling or something from that. But obviously he's done well to get to where he is being an AFL umpire. And it's not an easy job. But you the ones I give umpires the benefit of the doubt on are the ones just in the play where, the chaos is swirling all around them. These ones like this are the ones where you sort of think, well, come on, how can you not do that? I think the funniest thing is the Essendon fans getting all defensive about it, where if it had happened to them, backing on from the great Anzac Day debacle, there would be chaos. Imagine the hilarity that it would ensue if Essendon had had a game taken off them because a player had decided to climb up the post. In that case, I would have said, yes, definitely take the game off them because it would have just been so hilarious because they would have lost the plot. But as it is, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. But even then, I think there's a grey area because is it the action of climbing the post that shakes the post that gives the free, or are they looking for someone shaking the post deliberately? Yeah, that's if shaking the post is the crime, then the question is, the post shook, but did he shake the post?
My favourite thing about
philosophically,
my favourite thing about the rule was the fact that they mentioned the officials, players or officials, meaning an official must have at one stage climbed up the goalpost for them to be included in the rule.
Shook it, yeah. Well, I guess
in the 1900s, some officials climbed up.
I guess like a water boy or something could run out and just shake it and go, "Well, stiff shit. What are you going to do about it?" So they thought they better put them in. No doubt, you guys would have seen the replay of the classic footage this week of the chaos at Carrara with Simon Beasley trying to kick a goal from the pocket in the late 80s, with not only the Brisbane players forming a human pyramid in front of him, but also about 10,000. 12-year-old kids running around.
Running across the mark. And
one of the wildest things I've ever seen in my life. So, there should be more of that.
Yeah.
But look, it will never happen again now, because not only will they probably put a rule in place that says you can't climb the post, but it's just the kind of thing that happens once every 10, 15 years, and an entire generation of people will know, don't do it. I don't know how long he thought he was going to actually stay up the post. That he was going to impact the kick coming in, because he didn't. I don't think he was still up there when the ball even got near the goal.
No, he got told to get down by the umpire. The umpire saw it.
By the umpire who was saying it wasn't a free, who works for the league that says the umpire made the right decision and then went back and gave him a token fine, which he still doesn't have to pay.
Yeah, so he got fined for that, as well as fined for his comments to the umpire when he got a free kick against him during the game. Well, he got called to play on about 3 times. He didn't hear it, and then blamed the girly voice of the umpire.
He had a rampage of a night, because he also had that where he pretended to give the ball back to the bloke, and kind of did an air swing with his hand and just like didn't actually give the ball back to him. He needed to have a bloody piss test after that game. He was just doing weird things, left, right, and centre. It was an incredible performance. But yeah, so they fined him $1,000, but suspended it for the post incident.
They've suspended it. Okay. Yeah.
So it's good to see someone,
the
first person to be fined for being not guilty since the Melbourne Football Club in 2013.
Love it. Final thing, Jeff Kennett's a bit upset. He thinks the AFL is intentionally trying to weaken his club via its fixture. One of the points he's making is the fixturing them to play on Mother's Day. Now, I set you on the task. I didn't realise how monumental that task would be with 2 hours to go. You failed me. You didn't come up with the stats, but thankfully we've got... Do you know this guy, Sir Swamp Thing on Twitter? I'm sure you follow him.
Only by reputation.
He must have, and you mentioned it in a comment on Twitter, the database that he has and his ability to be able to pull out these amazing statistics. Incredible. So Hawthorn, Essendon and St Kilda have played the least... Oh, well, sorry. Forget... I'm going to disregard GWS and Gold Coast, who have played 2 and 3 times on Mother's Day. But Essendon and St Kilda have only played 4 times on Mother's Day in the AFL era. Carlton and Hawthorn 5 times, so I don't know what Jeff Kennett's whinging about. Collingwood 6, and then Melbourne, Port and Richmond have played 9 times. I thought we had played a lot more. For some reason, I remember there was always a hoo-ha when the fixture came out, and we seemed to be getting Mother's Day games all the time. Maybe it was just a couple of
110.
years. Yeah, maybe it was just a couple of years in a row, and because of that, I thought we had it more often.
There was a time when the AFL actually pumped up the Mother's Day fixtures. I remember Richmond and Collingwood many years ago, and being an absolute blockbuster of a game in front of a huge crowd. So I don't care what Kennett's whinging about, and I hope it's true and the AFL are trying to ruin him and his miserable club.
Well,
I've got no respect for any team that sells even more games than us interstate. So go and sell another 2 home games to Tasmania and make your money back that way.
Well, I saw a Richmond supporter say, well, we played Freo last year on Mother's Day and there were 43,000 people there. So,
it doesn't stop the Perth. I think 40,000 showed up to Freo West Coast this time. So I'm not sure if there are no mothers in Western Australia or something, but probably has more to do with the fact that their team was playing like absolute garbage.
Yeah. And playing GWS.
Just happened to have an excellent win that a lot of fans probably thought should have gone to that. So if you're going to have fans who just pull out at the slightest drop of trouble, then bad luck.
But you know what? I also think they probably shouldn't. If the AFL don't want to have 13,000 or whatever it was on a Mother's Day, then they probably shouldn't fixture GWS. I know Hawthorn supporters are probably partly to blame, but if they had put Hawthorn, any other Victorian team up, it probably would have got a better crowd. So, I mean, got to play GWS.
It was Father's Day where we set our all-time Etihad Stadium record against GWS of about 8,500 people. Last round of a not terrible year, but an ordinary year. At a ground where all our fans hated, but possibly don't hate as much as they used to, and we hadn't won there because that was the one that broke the lengthy streak, and that was about 8,500. That was a good day. There was certainly no queues anywhere in the stadium.
Good day to go to the toilet at the football.
Yeah, it probably cost us about $100,000 to the club, but amenities wise, it was a ripper.
All right, boys, unless there is anything else you want to discuss, we might wrap things up. Got anything going out, Super Mikado?
Just the usual blogs on demonblog.com where you can see my rankings of all the 6-point or less wins of the last 30 years, or the last since 1990 was the first one. that I ranked. So we've had exactly 30 now as of the other night.
So you ranked
I've applied
it.
a patented formula, including the insanity of the finish, the context of the game, and just the general vibe of how I felt about it. And came out with the Tom McDonald against West Coast at Subiaco being the most bonkers finish to a game. Overall, this was obviously the most bonkers finish, but that one had more context in it. The fact that it was our last ever game at Subiaco, you had Tom McDonald kicking 5, the way he kicked it, et cetera, et cetera. So that just came out on top.
Can you give me the top 5?
Oh, yes. Let me scroll. So we got that game. Then we got equal second, the round 20 and round 21, 2005 came together, which along missing after the siren at Cardinia Park and the Footscray Jeff White one. So, for instance, I ranked that as the number 1 for the context because obviously it had massive finals implications.
Was that 2 weeks in a row?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So we beat Geelong by 1,
yeah,
and then Footscray by 4 the next week. There was actually 3 in a row in 2006. Round 4, 5, and 6, we won by under a goal each week. So I had this one 4th, and 5th was round 9, 2010 versus Port, the one where we blew about a 40-point lead in the last quarter and narrowly got up. And that obviously wasn't the Trengove one because it was 2010. Oh yeah, that's the Trengove one. Where he smacked through the point. So, and then Mark Jamar was so tired he had to sit down for his post-match interview. So that was the top 5, right down to 30th, round 11, 1990 versus Carlton, which I think it was only a 6-point margin because they kicked a goal after the siren. So didn't have the vibe, didn't have the context, and certainly didn't have the insane finish.
Excellent. All right, boys. Thank you very much for joining us. Look, at least we got the win, and it wasn't all doom and gloom. And I don't know. I don't hold a lot of hope for this coming week. But please prove me wrong. You hold nil. All right. I hope we're all proven wrong. Thank you, Super Mikado. Thank you, Grapeviney, and thank you to Jayden Hunt. For joining us earlier on the podcast. All right, we'll be back next week. You can follow us on all the usual social medias, Facebook, facebook.com/Demonland31, Twitter @Demonland, Instagram @Demonland31. Search for us on YouTube by searching for Demonland Podcast. You can download the show on iTunes, any of the Android podcasting apps. We're on Spotify as well, or you can just stream us on SoundCloud on demonland.com. We'll be back next week. See you later. Go D's.